Hello and a good day to you. Today I have two esteemed guests, not just one. Usually it's one, but today it's two powerful brothers, man, that we're going to bring on in a minute. But before I do, there's a new book out called W.D. Farad, The Man, Myth, and Mystery Behind the Nation of Islam. So today I got Dr. John Anjumaro, and I got Bilal Muhammad. And these men have done some beautiful research. We're going to talk about the book. But before I bring them on, I'm telling everyone to make sure you get a copy. Make sure you get a copy. This book is being released August 15th, and you could get your own copy. Read it for yourself. A lot of information in there to add on to this history that we've been studying for years. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Dr. John Anjumaro and my brother Bilal Muhammad. Look at that. Look at that pose right there with the Quran. You know who
in
that
the name
is?
of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful.
Yeah, we got that. That's a good one. Let me ask you this, Dr. John. You've written books before. You've done interviews before. What is so special about this version of Master Farad Muhammad that we're going to be introduced to in this book?
Well, we've been learning more and more about Master Farad Muhammad over the decades. Revelations were made by the FBI, the Defense Army Intelligence, other intelligence agencies, scholars, researchers, and historians. And we keep uncovering more and more and more, right? All kinds of, just peeling back all these layers from this onion. And so the discoveries do not end. We worked on this for a few years. We've uncovered all kinds of incredible things, and there are still all kinds of incredible things to be discovered. The very day that I finally submitted this book for publication, I sent the camera-ready copy to Academica Press in Washington, D.C. I received a stack of top secret information from an intelligence agency concerning Master Farad Muhammad. So we're already working on the third book. This is not a task that is limited to myself or Bilal Muhammad or Carl Evans or Patrick Bowen or all of the other researchers, Beatty, all of these people, so many scholars that we recognize and we appreciate the work that they're doing. There's simply too much for one person to do. And so I encourage all of these scholars to work together, to collaborate, and to chase these leads.
Okay, beautiful. But ladies and gentlemen, let me also introduce Bilal Muhammad, who is a part of this book as a co-author. You've written books before. You've written articles before and different things. What, in your opinion, makes this special more than the other writings you have read about Master Farad Muhammad?
Well, I'm kind of excited on the direction that academia is going in because we all have ChatGPT. We can all do summary analysis, critique till the cows come home. But this is a book that is genuinely like an investigative report. We do the work of sleuths. We're doing the archival research. We're doing the DNA research. We're doing the forensic linguistic research. This is a book that just would interest anybody. There's UFOs in this book. There's missing person. In fact, I'd love to just rebrand this entire topic as the biggest missing person case in human history, because this is just a person that was worshipped as God by maybe millions of people at some point. At least in the hundreds of thousands of people worship this man as God, as Allah in person, as the Messiah, as the Mahdi. And is he a missionary? Is he an agent? Is he a con man? We go through all the evidence, we go through all the leads, and I'm incredibly proud of that. This is my first academically published book. So I am just thrilled and excited for you guys to check this out. And hey, we're the biggest fans of our own work. So we're just excited about all this.
All right. So let's run through the book and the different chapters that we have. And one of the things that in chapter 1, it's called W.D. Farad's Bible of Islamism. Identified a century-old mystery is solved. A century-old mystery is solved. What is the first chapter about?
So the first chapter was written by Dr. John Andrew Morrow. And as many of you know, the Detroit Free Press has a picture of Master Farad Muhammad from November 1932. It was from his police arrest after the Robert Harris voodoo killing. It was branded as the voodoo killing, but it was a human sacrifice. And the newspaper clipping was rediscovered sometime around 2010. And in it, he's showing a book to two detectives, police detectives. And in the paper, the book was called The Bible of Islamism. So many presume that it was the Quran. But in this chapter, Dr. Morrow discovers that the book was not actually the Quran, but actually Jehovah's Witness literature. It was a book called Deliverance by Judge Rutherford, who was the head of the Jehovah's Witnesses at that time.
Wow.
So, incidentally, I received a letter from the Jehovah's Witnesses just about 2 days ago. So as part of this,
really,
yes,
this is news to me. I didn't know anything about this.
I was going to make a video about it, and so as part of our research, we submit all kinds of Freedom of Information Act requests to government agencies, but also we just reach out to different groups, and we seek to verify claims. I contacted the Mormons, for example, every esoteric secret society imaginable, and I send the list of like 60 to 80 different aliases that Master Farad was using. Do you have any record of this person being a member of your group? The Masons are very forthcoming, and they share that information if you contact, the registrar. But in any event, I sometimes these people, they don't respond, or they tell you we don't disclose that type of information, right? I mean, the people who follow Aleister Crowley and these Satanists and stuff, they were not forthcoming with names. But the Jehovah's Witnesses did write back to me, and I asked them about this claim that Master Farad met Judge Rutherford. And it's possible that he did. I mean, it's plausible because Rutherford used to travel to the United States and used to give these lectures. He used to fill up stadiums. Rutherford was very popular. So we know that the Bible of Islamism was actually Deliverance by Judge Rutherford. We know that Master Farad recommended to his followers to listen to the speeches of Judge Rutherford. And we clearly see the influence of Watchtower literature in his teachings. And so there was an individual who made a claim that Master Farad did meet Judge Rutherford, and Judge Rutherford and the witnesses were influenced by the teachings and doctrines of Master Farad Muhammad. And so I reached out to them and I asked them, do you have any evidence in your archives, in all of your books, and all of your literature, and all of your publications, any trace at all, any evidence that Judge Rutherford and Master Farad met? They responded, and they said that there is no sign at all, no evidence, nothing to support that claim. And they also wanted to make it explicitly clear that their teachings have nothing to do, no relation and no connection to Master Farad or the Nation of Islam. So clean break there. They're disassociating themselves from all of those claims. So, that's good. That's good to me.
It's kind of like that meme where you have the two guys at the door, and it's like, are you two friends? And one of them says yes, and the other one says no. And kind of what this reminds me of, because I mean, clearly, we can talk about it, but there is a chapter in the book about Watchtower influences on the Nation of Islam teachings, including the idea that the world would end in 1914. Yeah. And that's clear Jehovah's Witness teaching. And Elijah Muhammad says in The Message to the Black Man that all religious scientists believe this, but it's really, the Jehovah's Witnesses. But yes. I digress.
Yeah, I came across a source. I'm not going to mention it. It dates from decades and decades ago, where one writer suggested that Master Farad was actually a Jehovah's Witness / a Muslim. This practice of going door to door knocking on people's doors, getting access to their homes.
That's very Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's very Jehovah's Witness. And you know how he was a dapper dresser? He was so sharp. He looked like $1 million. And so he would, knock on their doors and start talking. They'd invite him in. He'd eat with them. And he'd talk about the Bible. He'd start talking about their ancestors and how they actually came from Asia and they were Black Asiatics and that their real religion was Islam and so on. So again, getting that foot in the door to start to recruit converts to this movement. Yeah.
So no life after death. No life after death. That's also another major thing they have in common. And the 1,000-year rule. They have
1914. Yeah, started in 1914, and life after death. They said heaven and hell is on earth. Their conditions.
Exactly.
I'm saying. Let me ask you guys this. You have an interesting chapter here, right? Chapter 3, Malcolm X and the 12 Imams unveiling revolutionary convergence in Shiite thought.
Okay, so Malcolm X used to preach about the 12 Imams, the 12 scientists, in terms that really they sound like roulat or theologically extreme, Shiite doctrine, and so I came across this in some of the speeches of Malcolm X, these references to the 12 Imams. And where did he learn it from? He said he learned it from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Okay, now where did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad learn about the 12 Imams or the 12 scientists? Is it possible that he learned about them after 1934, in the Library of Congress, reading books, dealing with the Shia Muslims in Detroit, Chicago, Gary, Indiana, or other places? It's possible, however, in his earliest teachings and instructions, which date from the 1930s, Elijah Muhammad did mention the 12 imams, right? So it was I-M-I-M-S. He used to mispronounce things. He used to say the Quran instead of the Quran. But clearly he was speaking about the 12 imams. And so where did Elijah Muhammad get these teachings from? Well, clearly, he said that everything he learned from Master Farad Muhammad over, the span of 3 to 4 years. And so I'm convinced that he learned about the 12 Imams from Elijah Muhammad, which might suggest that Master Farad Muhammad was came from a Shiite background, from India. So that is possible. Could Master Farad have learned about the 12 scientists from Christian sources and esoteric sources and theosophy? Well, absolutely. Because ultimately that idea of the 12 imams, it actually traces back to the council of the 12 gods or the 12 deities or divinities. All of this stuff goes all the way back to ancient Mesopotamian times, this mystical, magical number 12. But the odds are, it came from his homeland, and perhaps it was intensified by his contacts with these different esoteric groups and so on, and it could be a combination of influences. So very interesting.
Just to right on the coattails of that. So the Rosicrucians believe in 12 ascended masters or 12 adepts, a technically different concept than the 12 imams, but clearly they were calling them also the 12 imams in the 1930s. And they were giving, the 12 imams, according to Master Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's teachings, I guess they were based in Mecca and that they wrote these scriptures. And normally when we talk about Malcolm X, we talk about his religious influences in terms of Nation of Islam influences, and then later his Sunni Muslim influences, are often called the Orthodox Muslim influences. But yeah, chapter 3 does highlight the possible 12 or Shia influences, not just about the 12 imams, but also his possible knowledge of Hussein and the emulation of Hussein toward the end of his life with his assassination. But I was also going to mention that in a recently unearthed lecture by Supreme Minister John Mohammed, he says that Master Farad Mohammed named the 12 scientists to him, and that they had original names, meaning Arabic names, and that they some of the names would repeat. And we don't have a list of these names, but we do know the names of the 12 imams, and they are Arabic names, of course. And they have names that repeat. You know, you have Muhammad al-Baqir and Muhammad al-Jawad. You have Ali al-Hadi and Ali al-Rida. You have Hassan al-Askari and the original Imam al-Hassan. So, like, you have some reused names among those 12 imams. So it's possible, because I think in the lecture, Supreme Minister is asking about the names of the 24, and then Farad answered with the names of the 12 imams, which is kind of just mainstream 12er Shia doctrine, that you know who the 12 imams are, but if he believed in 12 Mahdis that come after the 12 imams, well, that's where we get into an area where we don't necessarily know the names of those 12 Mahdis after the 12 imams. So I think it's very likely, again, I mean, if we were a fly on the wall in that conversation, it would have been very likely that he would have just listed the names of the 12 imams.
Yeah, so shout outs to Alam Khan from Alam Khan Publications, who has the most outstanding YouTube channel. Sorry.
Yes, when it comes to that information, he is the man.
Yeah, yes, that is just he has access, he has sources. They've shared all of these videos from Supreme Minister John Mohammed. It's a treasure trove. I know many scholars and historians, they're just waiting for these videos to be released, and each time a video is released, there are new discoveries to be made. In terms of like the 12 imams, the 24 imams or scientists, among the Ismailis, they do have this concept, one of their branches, these 24 imams or da'is or successors of the Prophet. So is there a 12er influence and an Ismaili influence? Quite possibly. Yeah. So yeah, and I want to be explicitly clear that Master Farad is original. Master Farad is not just one thing. He is a combination, you know, I'm not just saying it's Ghulat Shia influence. I'm not just saying it's Ahmadiyya influence or Jehovah Witness influences. There's just so much in there from different sources. And it's not copy and paste. It's not plagiarism. It's appropriation. All right. And so he uses all of these different sources and influences to advance his own theology. So, yeah.
Let's get to Bilal right here, because this is his era. There's a chapter about the actual facts, and this was like earth-shattering for me and my brother Rawborn, because we grew up listening to the actual facts. Who is the original man? What's the circumference of the planet Earth? 196,940,000 square miles. How much is land? 139 million. So we had to remember these things. Yes. And we're thinking this is coming from God himself. So when Bilal wrote his book, I kind of hated him for it. But it was just earth-shattering for a lot of people, you know. So like these things existed before Master Farad Mohammed even taught them to anyone.
It's an incredible chapter. Go ahead, Bilal.
Go ahead. Do you think, Bilal? This is all you.
I mean, you more or less summarize it, but just to go off on what Dr. Morrow was just saying, Master Farad Mohammed was not just one thing at the expense of something else. He was extremely resourceful. He was the god of his religion, right? Quite literally. And he was pulling from different books, including, we mentioned Judge Rutherford's book. There is you're referring to the almanac. There is an almanac from the 1920s, specifically, I think the 1928 almanac, where we have a page that has many of the actual facts, verbatim, the exact numbers. That Master Farad Mohammed would later use, and that would be included in the Supreme Wisdom lessons. So again, he was resourceful, and he told his followers to read the book called The Conquest of Civilization. He told them to listen on the radio to Judge Rutherford. He obviously presented and introduced the Holy Quran to them, and not just the seven circle Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, but actually the Quran that he would apparently, according to Bainon in 1938, would read from the Arabic Quran as well. So he was clearly somebody that had a lot of his own opinions and was not just plagiarizing or taking, he wasn't just teaching Buddhism or teaching Orthodox Islam or Ahmadi Islam or Sunniism or Shiism or the Theosophical Society, but rather, I mean, he was really a smorgasbord or a cornucopia of 1920s and 1930s American influences when it came to religion. But I mean, the other thing is that he's a political animal too, and he may arguably, I mean, we say in the book that he's maybe more the political animal than the religious animal. But this was a time period where religion was very influential, secret societies were very influential, pop science was very influential, the theory of evolution was very influential, eugenics and race history and race mythology and race science was very influential. We talk about the race science of Master Farad Muhammad and the Yacub story, but many people don't know that, hey, the Theosophical Society had their root races, and there was a whole mythology about how these root races came about, the Atlanteans, the Lemurians, and the others. You know, you had in Germany, the precursors, one of the main influences to the Nazis was the Thule Society. And the Thule Society also had a mythology of how the Aryan race came about, and they attributed it to a mythical island of Thule in the northernmost extreme above Europe. And so this idea of like a race beginning on an island, you know, Patmos Island, Thule Island, Atlantis, this is all over W.D. Farad's milieu.
Okay. We talked about this before, as far as Pearl Allen and the 100-year question. Is what are you guys adding to this right now? Is there something new, or is it not true? What's going on with the whole Pearl Allen story?
Do you want to take this, Dr. Morrow, or should I talk about it?
Sure, you know, so you don't have to toot your own horn and so on. But you know, you're justified in so doing. Yes, we've pursued this in the past. Pearl Allen, she hooked up, of course, with Fred Dodd or Master Farad Muhammad. It was believed that she had a son with him, Donald Campagna. It is possible, and Hazel Barton thought so. That's what he told her, apparently. It seems that Master Farad believed that the son was actually his. And I tried to reach out to that family, and I was not successful. I tried many different avenues, elders there in the Klamath Nation, and they told me that they didn't deny any of this and the connection to Master Farad, but they asked me, please, we want to keep all of this private. Now, Bilal Muhammad took this, he ran with it, and he contacted Malaya, who's what, the great-great-granddaughter of the person in question, something like that. And he convinced her to provide a DNA test. And who else? Was it her grandfather who provided the other one? But yes, he had them conduct DNA tests in order to determine whether or not Master Farad, presumably at that point an Arab, an Indo-Pakistani, was actually the ancestor. And all the results are there. It turns out that it is highly unlikely, basically impossible, that Donald Campagna was the son of Master Farad Muhammad. He seems to have been the son of this Italian guy that she hooked up with shortly, after, the relationship fell apart. So this is very, very important. Very important.
There's a point that I want to add to that.
Yes, please, by all means.
So it is very unlikely, according to DNA, that this is the descendant of Master Farad Muhammad. But you have to remember that DNA did not exist in those days. Yes. I mean, it existed, but like analyzing, DNA tests didn't exist in those days. And so as far as Hazel Barton was concerned in the FBI files, this was Master Farad Muhammad's son.
True.
And you would have only learned about him from Master Farad Muhammad. Now, what's interesting, I went back to try to trace this rumor. So again, like I'm friends now, I guess, with Malaya Compagna, and they do pronounce it Compagna. I know it's in Italian, it would be
Yeah,
Campagna.
I know.
Yeah, for some reason they are pronouncing it Compagna with the G.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I mean, I check in with her every so often on this topic, and she told me, quote, my great-grandfather, Jimmy, who was Donald Compagna's son, died when my grandpa Donald was 8. But he did mention that there was speculation that we could have been related to W.D. Farad in some way. It's confusing to explain due to so many Donalds, end quote. So this rumor clearly existed. It's possible. Well, here's one thing that Anton Beatty just recently discovered, and I think we included it in our book as well. Master Farad Muhammad, we all know, visited Hazel Barton. A.K. Arian found that he visited Hazel Barton in July of 1933, which coincided with an air show at that time. Okay. This was in July 1933. It turns out that a W.D. Ford from Detroit appears in Oregon in a hotel in July of 1934, just a couple of weeks after the visit to Hazel Barton in California. So it's possible. I mean, in the same way that Farad in July 1934 was trying to reconnect with his son, Wallace Max Ford, in July 1934 with Hazel, and it seems to have been a failed attempt to reconnect with him, it appears that he then drove up to Oregon and tried to maybe reconnect with Donald Lloyd Compagna Sr., who, for all intents and purposes, he thought could have been his son. Now, clearly this was also unsuccessful, but that's possibly where this rumor in the Compagna family comes from, that he probably visited this boy. Again, this boy would have been a teenager at that point. And again, it's a W.D. Ford from Detroit in Oregon, just a couple of weeks after we know that he was in California reconnecting with his other son. So it just seems to be very unlikely that this is somebody else. This is probably Master Farad Muhammad.
And this is a fantastic find. Why? Because it's the last time that a person by the name of W.D. Ford or W.D. Fard appears on the grid. All right? There are hints and indications and suggestions that he was in other places using other names. So why was he in the Pacific Northwest? Well, the odds are he wanted to reconnect with his son, right? Maybe he wanted to say goodbye. Where was he heading? Was he heading north into Canada? Was he going to board a ship? Was he heading to Hawaii? Back to Hong Kong? Back to British India? So that's where the trail, goes cold. But this is a very important find. So, I mean, for the people who are thinking that he just boarded the mothership and disappeared, or that he was sacrificed, right? These were rumors that the police killed him. That is not true. That is absolutely not true, because he disappears from Detroit. He shows up in California. Then he shows up in the Pacific Northwest. So the man he was alive and kicking at that point in 1934. And we need to see, where did he go after that? Okay, how far could he have driven, right? Where did he stay? Because back in those days, if you were a guest in a hotel, they used to publish that in the newspaper, right? It's incredible, all of this information that's available. So we have to keep digging, and we have to keep looking, to try to unravel this mystery that is Master Farad Muhammad.
One tiny correction is
Sure.
that the W.D. Ford Oregon appearance is actually July 1933.
Oh, okay, yes.
Right.
Right.
So that would have been not the last time
Yeah.
that he was around. However, I do want to make this point that really Master Farad Muhammad has his trial he gets arrested in November 1932. That with the voodoo killing incident. Of course, he gets let go. They tell him to leave Detroit. He goes to Chicago. It seems like in 1933, he's driving all around the country, because one day he's in Wisconsin, and another day he's in California, and another day he's possibly in Oregon. Wakil Allah's book mentions that he went to Canada frequently. So he was clearly driving around. And as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a lot of evidence of 1934 Master Farad Muhammad. We don't really, I mean, we have stories about him, but we don't, and I think we have some letters being written to him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I have the book, the Reformer book. But the point is that it's like Master Farad Muhammad is not so active after the voodoo killings. He's really just writing letters back, and these letters have some of the problems in the Supreme Wisdom lessons. But just shout out to Anton Beatty. So Anton Beatty put out this book, W.D. Farad's First Footsteps in America, Trail in Oregon, and with Kevin Morris. And in that book, this is 600 pages, by the way. It's full of documents, and his archival research is, unmatched, let's say. He discovered something very interesting, which Dr. Morrow just hinted about. W.D. Farad came to America in 1907, according to this book, pretty conclusively. Unless somebody's able to refute the evidence, we see that he came under the name Wali Dad Khan, Khan, Wali Dad Khan, in 1907 aboard the SS Coptic. That was the name of the ship. You could look it up. Dr. Morrow mentioned that he had come from Hong Kong. It's true, because the ship went from Hong Kong to Japan to the United States. And Wali Dad Khan is very similar to names that he would use, of course, Wali and Wallace, Dad and Dodd. Khan, of course, he would give that name to some of his followers. So that was the way you would get to America if you were coming in from British India. You would go from British India to China to the United States by boat, by ship at that time. And 1907, because 1908 is really when he appears in the newspaper record as Fred the Turk or Fred the Greek. That's really when we start to see him as the Tamale man. He starts to do for self by working hard and making a lot of money in Oregon at that time.
Okay. All right. They're pretty interesting. Let me ask you this.
We're all over the place. There's just so much in this book. I mean, you guys just have to pick it up. That's
it's a lot. I'm still reading it. And let me say this. One of the most emotional things about Master Farad Muhammad, or W.D. Farad, is the pictures. Because even the videos I've made with you guys, and you said, oh, that picture is X, Y, and Z, or that picture is fake and all that stuff. What do you guys go into as far as the images of Master Farad Muhammad or W.D. Farad? What are you guys going to as far as that chapter is concerned?
Bilal, you can go ahead.
It's called perfectly. It's perfectly called an emotional analysis.
Okay. In this chapter, Dr. Morrow uses an emotion recognition software to analyze the pictures of W.D. Farad, the extant pictures that we have. And it gets a glimpse of what he was feeling in each picture. So we have his mugshot photos, we have his Detroit Free Press photo, and we have his Des Moines Tribune photo. And we also have his official portrait. And what comes up in the emotional recognition software is neutrality, anger in most of the photos. And then in the Detroit Free Press photo, there's even a bit of amusement. And even the newspaper says that he was an quote, Oriental fakir who was smirking in that photo.
Yeah, the enigmatic smile of an Oriental fakir. Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, fakir in those days meant something like a magician and con man. It appears frequently in the newspapers in the 1930s, that term.
And he was indeed a magician or a miracle maker, which is another fascinating thing.
Exactly, yeah. And, I mean, we do have miracles that are attributed to Master Farad Muhammad. So I think we do need to more seriously look at this overlap as well.
Okay. All right. I see you have a chapter with about John Muhammad's teachings. Do we see a difference in totality than what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, or is it pretty much the same?
Master Farad Muhammad Well, let me put it to you like this. Mr. Elijah Muhammad was very faithful in his representation of Master Farad Muhammad's teachings. However, he was also political. I mean, he was maneuvering a multi-million-dollar organization. He had followers. He had the faith of those followers. He had a mission. He had a creative license in how he was going to teach and interpret the message. So Supreme Minister John Muhammad doesn't have those liabilities. He is a person who also met Master Farad Muhammad, who has very good memory, and is able to recount many of the stories and anecdotes that took place in the 1930s with Master Farad Muhammad. And he's someone that never traveled outside of the United States. He never did Hajj. He wasn't the one meeting all of these Orthodox Muslims and maybe explaining his teachings to them and all of that. So he has this he's kind of like a time capsule in that he gives this raw, unadulterated form of 1930s Nation of Islam teachings. Of course, I mean, it is filtered through, like, he still, of course, saw his brother as the messenger of Allah. And so he took his brother's interpretations of the teachings of W.D. Farad. But nonetheless, you get the impression, and he reveals like some pretty embarrassing stories about W.D. Farad. I mean, things that Elijah Muhammad didn't talk about necessarily. So one that comes to mind, which I mentioned last time on your show, is that his white mother, who was a devil, used to put out a white table cloth, and that Master Farad Muhammad would spill coffee on the tablecloth because she was a devil, and he would get her to work to clean it. Now, I mean, that could be a story that has symbolic influence because, it's the black coffee that's overcoming the white tablecloth. So there's some symbolism potentially there. But nonetheless, I mean, you get this idea that Master Farad Muhammad was telepathic and that he was having telepathic conversations with his brothers in Asia. And when his brothers were overwhelming him in the telepathy, he would ask for a lemon and then suck on the lemon. And apparently the contents of the lemon would block the transmission, the kind of signal, the telepathic signal. There's stuff like that, which you don't hear necessarily from the mainstream Nation of Islam, but we have no reason to doubt because, hey, I didn't meet Master Farad Muhammad. Dr. Morrow didn't meet Master Farad Muhammad, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware.
Just in my dreams and visions.
He might be your next door neighbor right now.
So the mothership, right?
I spent entire nights accompanying him in Detroit.
Facts, all
like
facts.
that,
But you know who did meet Master Farad Muhammad in the flesh and not just on a spaceship? Supreme Minister John Muhammad. And I find that too many people they're too dismissive of him when it's like, hey, neither of us met Master Farad Muhammad. This guy did. And he has the receipts. And much of what he says is corroborated by Elijah Muhammad, by Bainon, by the FBI files, by other pioneers, like in Wakil Allah's books. It's all corroborated. Like, you don't have to take his word for it independently. You can compare it to everything else that's been said. And I mean, look, shout out to the account on YouTube is called Supreme Minister John Muhammad in like capital letters, and everything's in capital letters. And I think the guy's caps lock is just broken. But what's more important is that his channel has all this rare stuff. Bless his heart, like that he's putting all these rare lectures. And then Alam Khan, who is like an encyclopedia. I've never met the guy, but Dr. Morrow's met the guy, and he's like an encyclopedia. He's like he actually listened to all these videos. So did I, to be fair, but he took notes on them, which I didn't do. And then he will take snippets and then put them on his channel with all the fancy editing and music and whatnot that I can't do, right? I'm technologically illiterate. So Alam Khan, just check out his YouTube channel, Alam Khan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, had I known that Supreme Minister John Muhammad was preaching in those years, I would have gone in. I would have moved to Detroit. I would have attended his lectures. I'm serious. And had I had the opportunity to start this research decades ago, there are so many people we could have reached out to that the FBI missed. Donaldson, for example, right? That was a very, very hot lead. And all of these pioneers, right? We're not talking about all of these pioneers, the people who actually met Master Farad, attended his lectures, and who were taught by him personally. They had, yeah, we need to preserve this history as much as we can. As much as we can. So if anyone out there has inherited anything from their grandparents, if you have any relics, any documents, anything, we're very sympathetic towards the Nation of Islam. We treat our subject with a great deal of respect. If these documents die, they disappear forever, and that's it's a terrible tragedy and a great disservice to history, to American history, to African American history, to the history of Islam in this nation. So please, by all means, if you can, be forthcoming.
All right. Hey, I mean, we have people who are taking the time out to put the research in. Why not? Why not? Whatever information. I know the gentleman by the name of what's his name? Paul, I forgot his name. Paul Guthrie, right. He had said something about some stuff. Has any of his stuff ever like manifested into something important as far as information?
I was speaking with him just a couple of weeks ago, and he told me about his ongoing research. I'm not going to share any of that, but he's pursuing some interesting leads. He says he doesn't feel very comfortable with technology and being behind a camera, so that's really not his medium. But I'm looking forward to any of the findings that he can share with us, whether it's printed or whether it's over YouTube. Yes, there's all kinds of people out there. I don't want to dismiss them as like armchair historians or anything pejorative like that, but there are like community historians who spend a lot of time on newspapers.com, on ancestry.com, who are doing all kinds of research. And sometimes, their theories are wild and crazy, but and quite often they just find stones, but occasionally they do find gold nuggets, right? Things that are worth pursuing. And so it's just a matter of time that they will stumble upon some valuable information. The fact of the matter is, so many newspapers have yet to be digitized. And, the more these newspapers are digitized, the more I am certain that we will find, accounts and revelations concerning Master Farad Muhammad, and we'll be able to fill in the blanks. Because let me be very honest about this. Master Farad Muhammad was leading a double life. He was leading one life as a black man, half white, half black, leading the Nation of Islam. But half of his time is unaccounted for. He was traveling all over the place. He was traveling to Kansas City. He was traveling to Wisconsin. He was traveling to California, to the Pacific Northwest. He was traveling at different points in his life to the East Coast, to New York, to New Jersey. We have nothing about what he was doing in those places, and whatever he was doing, he was not doing it using any of the names. We're up to like 80 names now that he was using. So if we could find out the other aliases he was using, we might be able to find things in printed matter and fill in those blanks, right? Get the other side of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we need, man. We need as much as help, and we can't do it by ourselves. We got to get all the input and help as much as possible. You guys have a chapter on without giving away too much. Chapter 9, Farad has escaped history. A review of Michael Muhammad's Nights, the supreme wisdom lessons of Scripture of American Islam.
Yeah, that's a review of Michael Muhammad Knight's recent book on the supreme wisdom lessons. I was hoping for more revelations and so on. Unfortunately, there wasn't much in terms of new revelations. I think the major contribution there pertains to the sources that inspired those lessons. And so he went deep and he proposed all kinds of different sources upon which Master Farad relied. Another important point he made is, now Elijah Muhammad said that Master Farad Muhammad had studied at the University of California. And I had suggested that maybe he audited lectures because he lived close to there, or he went to the university, or he studied, he went to their library. But actually, Michael Muhammad Knight confirmed that the University of California offered correspondence courses to the prisoners at San Quentin. And that is just incredible. And interestingly, a lot of those courses, the ones that the courses on mathematics, the problems in those courses resemble the problems that he used to teach to his students and his followers. Things like measuring the circumference of the earth and things like that. These type of problems that are exciting to a student and cool. That's what they were teaching. What would be fantastic is if they still have these records. And I've attempted to secure this information or locate it. So far, I haven't been successful. I would love the registrar from the University of California to go back in the records and say, aha, yes, we have a Wally Dodd Ford, whatever, who was enrolled in this class. That would be the most incredible thing. So we know the classes were offered. I'd love to see him, on the list of student names. Yeah. Shout outs to Michael Muhammad Knight. Thank you for all the work that you've done, and we encourage you to continue to contribute to this field.
I think brother is muted.
Yeah, let me get that right there. Hey, Bilal, I was saying that there's a chapter on W.D. Farad attending a funeral of a Freemason in Australia in 1940 with a question mark. So was that something new that you guys picked up on that you had to totally investigate, or did you guys already have this information before the book?
Well, Dr. Morrow investigated a reported reference to W.D. Farad in Australian newspapers in 1940 because there was a man with a very similar name who attended a funeral of a Freemason there. And Hazel Barton did tell the FBI that Farad went back to New Zealand. So could this have been him? And Dr. Morrow proves, that it's not. Spoiler alert, it's not him.
But one of these leads could possibly pan out. And so this was something sent to me by a gentleman from, I don't know, I think he was from California. He's a Freemason or whatever. He sent this to me, and he says, look into this. And, I did. And unfortunately, it wasn't him. I would have been really excited had we found him. Aha! So now we go to Australia. All right, I'm going to go do research there, pursue the lead. But yeah, it was interesting.
We get close calls all the time. You have to remember it. Like, we are crawling newspaper records all the time, and you have no idea the kind of coincidences that came through this research. And this was just another one of those close calls. And there are many, and a couple of them make it into the book.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Right, because there's so many, we couldn't possibly mention them all, right? Yeah, some are debunked within a matter of minutes. Others take a few hours. But there was enough meat here to produce a chapter. And we want to prevent scholars from following, dead ends and wasting their time, right? That's important. Their time is valuable, and we want them to focus on things that are more tangible.
Well, when I saw what the book was about and the different chapters, this chapter was the chapter that I had to read first, right? Chapter 17, Beam Me Up, Scotty, the mothership. I wasn't too happy after, but definitely an eye catcher, man. Can one of you guys elaborate on this chapter here?
Yeah, Bilal, go ahead, please.
And be careful.
I thought you had prepared something on this.
Be careful. We're friends right now. Be careful how you're talking about this.
So one of the, you could say, seminal pieces in W.D. Farad's faith or religion was the belief in a mothership. The mothership, the mother plane, it has other names, but basically the idea that the mothership, which was built by Asiatic people, black scientists in the island of Japan or Nippon, and that it had been completed sometime before Master Farad Muhammad's coming to Detroit in 1930. The idea was that Armageddon was a real war, and that the Asiatic people would have a role in that war. And so this mothership would come and turn America into a lake of fire and brimstone. And it would basically incinerate the United States using, it was a ship that had many baby planes, or a plane that had many baby planes that would come out of it, and that they would drop bombs, and these bombs would drill into the earth and they would explode, and that they would also drop bombs that had poison gas. And of course, I mean, this is information that's corroborated in lectures. Elijah Muhammad speaks at length about the mother plane. The FBI files talk about it. Supreme Minister John Muhammad talks about it. And so my interest was, where do these ideas come from? Did you have ideas similar to this in Master Farad Muhammad's time? And so I investigate the kind of aircraft. Of course, this was an interesting period because 1926 is when you get the first transatlantic flights, commercial flights. You get the Wright brothers in the early 20th century, but then you have this very quick evolution of aircraft and air travel. And so, of course, you also have pop science and science fiction. So 1899, I believe, you get War of the Worlds by Wells, which was about Martians. And of course, Master Farad Muhammad did believe that there were people on Mars. And then in 1928 or 1929, I believe, there was a book called A Skylark in Space. And so both of these have basically UFOs, which are able to fly outside of the atmosphere at breakneck speeds. And of course, Master Farad Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad claimed to have seen the mother plane, had seen the mothership. So I looked, I was like, was there a giant airplane that flew over Detroit or Chicago in the 1930s? And it turns out, yes, you had something called the Graf Zeppelin. It was the largest Zeppelin or blimp at that time ever in the sky in human history. And yes, it did fly over Detroit and Chicago, and you could look at photos of it. And was this the mothership that Master Farad Muhammad had identified and pointed out to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? I don't know. In some respects, it fits the description. In other respects, it doesn't. But the point is that the mothership represented, again, piecing together some science fiction along with the idea of Ezekiel's wheel, the idea of a judgment and fire and brimstone coming, perhaps even some foreknowledge of Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, because that was an aerial attack after all, and that did happen less than 10 years after, just at the end of 1941. So not long after Master Farad Muhammad had disappeared. It also could be potentially inspired by some knowledge of aircraft carriers. And yes, Japan did build aircraft carriers at that time, and they were made out of steel. And it's alleged that the mothership was made out of steel. As far as someone can correct me if that's not true, but I think that's official teaching. So this is really one of the earliest UFO cults in that sense. I mean, Master Farad Muhammad really was at the cutting edge and was very interested in the technology and the science of his time.
Fascinating.
Without
you can see the appeal.
Yeah, the appeal. That's going to be the most important part of the interview, that clip right there. Let me ask you this. The next chapter, which is going to be the final chapter I talk about, is, of course, another important topic, Yacub's creation. Without giving away too much, are you guys to explain to the audience what you're trying to do with this actual chapter? What are you trying to do?
Would you like me to answer this one?
Go ahead, Dr. John. I want to hear your. I want to hear. Be careful now. You're talking about Yacub now. Be careful.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Master Farad taught that there was this, God named Yakub who was responsible for the creation of the white race. All right, involving some type of genetic engineering or so on. Okay, where did this idea come from? Potentially. Well, we have to travel back to the time he spent at San Quentin. And, Bilal Muhammad discovered that there was a doctor there by the name of Dr. Stanley, who was involved in all kinds of unethical experiments. And he wrote about it in one of his chapters. And I says, do you want to go more in depth? And he says, no, you can pursue it. And so I did pursue it. So this individual, Dr. Stanley, was a white supremacist. He was a eugenicist. He was an admirer of the Nazis. He was a segregationist. He was very upset that San Quentin wasn't segregated. And so when he got the funding to build like a medical wing, he ensured that it was properly segregated. And now this person was not trained as a surgeon. He was just a physician, a doctor. And then he basically learned on the job in the prison. After all, these are only prisoners. He devoted himself to sterilizing prisoners to make sure, he thought that criminality had a genetic component and a social component, and it was in the best interest of society to make sure that the genes of these people did not, continue. So he was also, and I'm going to use some euphemisms here to be cautious. Well, let's just say he harvested eggs from black cats, and he transplanted them into old white cats who were sterile and impotent in order to give them more pep. He is the forerunner of Viagra. And so when this was done, right? Like my son said, wasn't he concerned that the children of these white men would be black? But no, Dr. Stanley was not concerned about that because they kept what they had, but he just opened up and he added these eggs, and it gave a huge boost and testosterone. So old, impotent white men became like young bucks. This man sterilized over 10,000 people. This became a profitable business for him. He was harvesting these eggs and he was shipping them around the world. Even Freud benefited from a pair of new black eggs, believe it or not. It was the Viagra of the time. So is it possible that Master Farad Muhammad fell victim to the scalpel of this mad scientist, Dr. Yacub? And also he thought ugliness led to crime. And so he was involved in all kinds of plastic surgery, right?
Cosmetic surgery, yeah.
Right. So what he did, he's like the Joseph Mengele of the United States. And now people talk about reparations. That's a long way back. Now, but there are people who are related to these prisoners. He was there for like over 40 years. So tens of thousands of people were victimized by this person. This was a state prison. This is the state of California. I could see the family members of those prisoners who were victimized start a class action suit against San Quentin or the state of California. It is absolutely horrific what he did to those prisoners. And it is possible, since Farad was there at the time, whether or not he was a victim, we don't know, but it's curious. He was never involved with women after he was released from prison. It makes Yeah, it makes yeah, it's yeah, I just don't know how to
What
explain.
year? What year was he released again?
1929, right, Bilal? 1929.
You're muted, Bilal.
I believe May 1929, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then he heads straight to Chicago, and he's there a couple of months, and then Noble Drew Ali is killed, and then he ends up in Detroit. But to our knowledge, he was not involved with women, but we know he was always involved with women before that, and that's the subject of another chapter. Black supremacists prefer blondes. Pretty much all of the women he was involved with, they were platinum blondes. They had, blue eyes, and so when he said that his mother was a devil, in some sources it says she was Armenian and she was platinum blonde. It sounds very much like he was describing his ex, Hazel Barton. If you look at a picture of her, she had like platinum blonde hair. So some of us, we have issues when we break up with our wives and we get divorced and so on. We have grudges. It does seem he had quite a grudge against, white blonde women.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we tend to demonize, our exes and so on and blame them when sometimes we should blame ourselves or share the blame. But yeah, it's interesting. All of this psychologically, right? This is something that Carl Jung would love.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to compliment Dr. Morrow, because Dr. Morrow is just such a much juicier writer than me. Like my writing is very, very dry, very academic, and he can do that too. But he also has a fun, like that chapter is one of the most fun chapters in the book. And it's not just Hazel Barton; it's also Laura Swanson. I mean,
absolutely.
one of the prettiest faces that you'll see in the 1910s. I can tell you.
Yeah, she was gorgeous. Yeah.
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 There's that, and then
and even Pearl Allen, she used to dye her. I don't know if she was naturally. I mean, she didn't have much indigenous blood. Was her hair that light? It was almost blonde, or did she dye it? But nonetheless, that was a very popular hair color in the 20s and 30s.
No, I mean, we have pictures of Pearl Allen, of course. The pictures in our book are sketches more so than actual photographs, but I've seen photographs of Pearl Allen and wood. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, we do have photographs.
Laura Swanson, wood.
Yeah, we do have photographs, but sometimes the ownership and the copyright of those photographs is unclear. And do they fall in the public domain? So sometimes it's safer to just go with sketches. So that was our approach there, just to play it safe.
All right. Hey, I want to say this, man. This book seems like I'm reading it, and it seems like you're gonna need definitely another book after this one. Which you guys, I don't know, are you guys planning to write? Because I'm telling you, the more books you write, the more people are gonna come in with information and start flooding you. Like, oh man, when is this gonna end? It's gonna end once Master Farad Muhammad knocks on your door and said, "I'm here. You don't need to investigate it."
Yeah, it's already in the works.
You're gonna knock on your door one day and say, "Hey, you got it right."
I mean, maybe Paul Guthrie's hiding him in like a monastery or something. I don't know, but like the point here is that there's a lot. No, he's a great guy. I mean, he was one of my early correspondences on this issue, and I mean his work on connecting W.D. Farad to India is incredible. Of course, this doesn't mean necessarily I agree with the conclusion that he was preaching Buddhism, but again, I would not be surprised whatsoever if W.D. Farad included Buddhist elements in his teachings. And Paul is just one of the nicest guys. But I just wanted to say that there's so much in this book. Michael Muhammad Knight actually opened my eyes to, hey, look deeper at the San Quentin years. And, I read a book about, there was a book by someone who was in San Quentin around the same time that Master Farad Muhammad was in San Quentin. And that book, I believe it's called Grimhaven. And so I read it cover to cover. And you get the real sense of what San Quentin was like in the 1920s. There are still some avenues to explore. There was a prison magazine. It was called The Bulletin. It looks like it's mainly fiction, like literary, fiction. stories in that magazine. So that's an avenue to look at if you're a sleuth and you'd like to get one step ahead. But I mean, there's a lot to learn about Leo Stanley. I have a chapter in the book called The Theology of Doing Time. And that chapter is all about the San Quentin years and the influences, the religious influences in San Quentin, the Garveyite influences in San Quentin. And I personally believe, and this is my current hypothesis, and I believe that Master Farad Muhammad, after leaving San Quentin, whether it was penile or penal, we're going to stick to the eggs, but whatever it was, there was some trauma in that prison. I mean, this was a hot, this was a time of punishment and penalty, not rehabilitation. There were hangings. There were people getting shot. There was like gang warfare in the prison, of course. People. There was a lot of racism. Think about it. He was a 5'6", light brown-skinned white person, probably in the more white quarters of the prison, but he was able to freely mix with the people of color there. And I believe personally that he got out of that experience and he decided that he was going to declare war on the white man. I mean, I really think at this point that this was a case of someone that came to the United States in pursuit of the American dream, became somewhat successful, but met racism everywhere. He was being considered a Turk. He was being considered a Greek. He was being taken to court by Laura Swanson, by Pearl Allen, and then eventually goes to prison and does hard time and probably encounters more trauma in that prison. And so by the end of it, it's kind of like a failed, like it's an American dream, but it's, the negative side of that in that time, in that very racist and traumatic time, and in this interwar period. And I do think like he was this revolutionary, he was this rebel, and he was there to misbehave in that way. And maybe he was working with Imperial Japan, and we explore that in the book. And there are leads in Japan that we'd like to explore. But hey, I mean, whatever it is, Master Farad Muhammad was not one thing. He was not one singular, simple thing. This was a complex man. We look into his psychology, his, get the book. Trust me.
Yes, I'd just like to add a few things. People like Paul Guthrie and others who suggested or theorized that Master Farad Muhammad came from India. From the point of view of forensic linguistics, that is confirmed. When I was in graduate school, there were programs that we used. And so like, people who speak English as a second language, you could input, right, their language into this program, and it would determine what their first language was. Now ChatGPT can do that better than any of that software that I used in the 90s. And it's something like 98% accurate. And so I mentioned this to Bilal, and and he went and he used ChatGPT. He inputted all of Master Farad's letters and all of his writings and so on, and it came back very clearly that the mother tongue of the person who wrote all of those letters and articles and documents and teachings, that the person's mother tongue was Urdu. All right, so then that pinpoints his origin. It traces it back to what is now Pakistan or India. Urdu is not a language that's commonly spoken in Afghanistan. And so I think we can say with great confidence that his mother tongue was Urdu, and that he originated in what was then British India. So we're not dogmatic people. We don't have a dog in the fight. We don't have any agenda. Our only objective is to find the truth. We're operating from an academic point of view, a historical, critical point of view. And in my previous book, Finding, W.D. Farad, Unveiling the Identity of the Founder of the Nation of Islam, I considered everything, right? According to the sources, some people said he was Jamaican, that he was Syrian, that he was Lebanese, that he was Greek, that he was Turkish, that he was
I was
Jewish.
rooting for the Jamaican part.
Yes, because there are influences from, the Rastafarians and so on. So Urdu.
There's a lot to say about the Urdu thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Brother Garfield's gonna try to like close the show or whatever. Like, you're muted, brother.
I was saying, go on.
Yeah, go ahead, brother. Preach, right?
Yeah.
No, here's the thing. I know I'm wearing the bow tie, but look, had it just been the ChatGPT, forensic linguistics, he probably speaks Urdu. Had that just been it, it'd be like, okay, maybe. But look, he wrote Arabic script on the membership cards, and Urdu uses Arabic script, number one. Master Farad Muhammad told Supreme Minister John Mohammed that his mother came from Kashmir. That's what he says. Now, of course, we often think, okay, well, his mother was white, therefore she was Caucasian, therefore she came from the Caucasus, therefore, some people say that she came from Azerbaijan, or she came from Armenia, or what have you. Maybe, but as far as I'm concerned, Elijah Muhammad never actually says that she came from the Caucasus Mountains. Somebody can get that reference if that exists. But we have Supreme Minister John Mohammed very clearly saying on tape that she came from the Kashmir Mountains. We have from the 1951 Hatem Sahib thesis that Master Farad Muhammad's father found Master Farad Muhammad's mother in the same country, in the mountains of that country, which would imply that they were both from British India. We know that people from Kashmir are light-skinned. They're white-skinned. Their skin color is very similar to mine. So it's very likely that when Master Farad Muhammad was talking about having a white mother, named BBG, Baby G, means respected lady in Urdu. And he used that same name on his World War I draft registration, Baby G. Or Bobby G. So that is, you get all the data points together, and he was light brown skin and so on. You get all the data points together. It's pointing to British India. And there's more coming, hopefully, inshallah, that Dr. Mora will reveal on this topic. That's pointing towards British India.
Yes, and Brother Bilal had also mentioned about the need to conduct research in Japan, and to seek out these and scour these Japanese sources. Fortunately, there's a Japanese scholar, a Japanese American scholar, Takako Day, who has done just that. She went through all of the intelligence reports from Japan. And she found some very interesting things about, connections between Japanese intelligence and subversive movements in the United States, especially end of the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, all the way up to the Second World War. So Navy intelligence, on our side, reveal that the Japanese had over 1,000 operatives in the United States, and they were creating, supporting, financing, and co-opting pretty much any subversive movement. Unionist, socialist, communist, fascist, white supremacist, black nationalist, and Islamic groups. And so we have that from Navy intelligence. We have that from the FBI. We also have that from the RCMP. We also have that from Canadian intelligence. They were tracking the actions and the operations of Japanese intelligence in the United States at that time. So we have the Japanese intelligence agencies, the documents themselves saying, in one document, it talks about the need to control the Islams in America. And so according to Navy intelligence, the FBI, the RCMP in Canada, Marcus Garvey was, at some point, there was a connection there. Marcus Garvey had Japanese support. Noble Drew Ali, they mention, and also the Nation of Islam. So Bilal mentioned before that, our view is that he was independent. Was he, what can we really say, that he was an agent of the Japanese, or that they shared common interests? And so it's interesting, what the Japanese were doing back then is basically what the Russians have been doing for decades in the world, trying to create a dissent and division by supporting and funding all kinds of rival factions in the United States to create chaos and to weaken the nation. So the Russians are following basically what the Japanese were doing in the 20s and 30s.
Oh man, yeah, the Japanese definitely in the 20s. You see a lot of documentation. I think in the early 30s, you see something with the Moorish Science Temple assisting and different things that they're funding. And yeah, you see, there are a couple of newspaper clippings and FBI files.
And Nation of Islam leaders were regular. Now, the Japanese had consulates throughout the United States. They had one in Detroit, and in the Pacific Northwest and Los Angeles and so on. But in Detroit and Chicago, the FBI were reporting that leaders of the Nation of Islam were regularly going to meet with the Japanese consul, and were they receiving funding? Perhaps. They were interested in showing their solidarity with the colored people of the world. They wanted to unite all of them against Western imperialism.
It could be they're helping for recruiting to help to build the mothership. Because remember, I'm just saying.
I mean, look, the United States was their enemy. Many powers, foreign powers, did try to create a fifth column in the United States for their own purposes. And it probably is still done today. But really, I mean, what do historians say? Quite frankly, historians are just as puzzled as everybody else is. Was Farad some kind of a missionary? And if so, what was he like? Why was he teaching a religion that was so unique and different? Was he a con man? And if so, why target people that had no money and then just disappear? And was he a foreign agent? We know he had relationships with Japanese agents like Major Takahashi and Ashima Takis. But these were kind of like frenemies competing over the same flock. Was he delusional, as the prison doctor would conclude, that he had delusions of grandeur? Some of his symptoms do line up with bipolar 1, according to my doctor brother. But some don't. Was he a domestic agent that was trying to promote segregation among blacks, just as the KKK was promoting it among whites? The truth is, no one knows for sure. But we know quite a bit about the historical W.D. Farad, just like there is a Christological Jesus, there's a historical Jesus. So likewise, there's a historical W.D. Farad that historians have been trying to piece together for decades. And the truth is, Farad is still clouded in mystery after all this time. But the picture is getting clearer and clearer, and our book is the latest attempt at that.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the book is on the screen. W.D. Farad, The Man, Myth, and Mystery Behind the Nation of Islam by Dr. John Anjumaro and my brother Bilal Muhammad. This book is fascinating. I mean, I could talk to these brothers for hours, but I don't want them to do a lot of spoiler alerts so you don't end up buying the book. It's Chance. It's on Amazon as of August 15th. Go get your copy. It's a beautiful book. You're gonna get a couple of nuggets in there you never heard before. And the fascinating thing is there's gonna be another part to this. So hey, you know what? I want to say thank you to Bilal Muhammad. I want to say thank you again to Dr. John Anjumaro. As usual, you guys always bring out the good stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I want to say thank you and have a good night. Peace.
Thank you so much. Take care.